Oh my god, hey! Welcome back to my stagey YouTube channel. If you are seeing my face for the first time, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre. And I don't know if everybody's talking about Jamie, but today I definitely am, because last night I got to go and see the world premiere of the new movie adaptation of the British musical Everybody's Talking About Jamie. It was this very big fancy premiere event in London at the Royal Festival Hall. There was a pink carpet, the cast were there for a Q&A. Dan Gillespie Sells, the composer of the show's score, performed the song Everybody's Talking About Jamie with his band The Feeling. I went to go see The Feeling when I was a teenager, so that was a throwback moment for me. They had a pink carpet full of celebrity guests, lots of drag queens. The looks on the pink carpet were much more exciting than the Met Gala, let me tell you. I got to see so many lovely stagey friends, like my friends Sean and Daz and Amy and Bryony and Lewis and Sarah and Elliot. So many people, I can't even name them all. Everyone from Theatreland was there. It was an amazing evening, and I got to see the film, which is super exciting because it isn't getting released on Amazon Prime until Friday of this week. There's so much to say about this film. I'm definitely going to be making a few videos about this on my channel this week, including one where I review the film for you all and let you know what I thought. But before I do that, in today's video, I want to let you know about the changes between the original stage show and this new film version, because one of the first things I thought as I was watching the film was, oh my gosh, this is different. And I started to get a little bit worried that some of the really die-hard fans of the show weren't going to be happy necessarily with all of the changes. And I know from experience that when you go and see an adaptation of something or a revival of something where a show has been changed and you're used to the original, it's difficult to enjoy because you're spending most of your time just processing the changes. So I'm going to let you know about the changes today so that you can pre-process all of those. It's worth saying as well, if you do not know the plot of the show and you do not want spoilers for that, this will be a very spoiler-heavy video about the plot of the show, so do not watch this until you have seen the show. If you do not want spoilers for particular details of the movie, I'm not going to make it really specific, but I am going to talk about the changes and what happens in the movie structurally and emotionally, so best to avoid this until you've seen the movie as well if you don't want those spoilers. Also, disclaimer, I've seen this show 3 times, I know it pretty well, but if I get any of the details about the actual show wrong, please do not crucify me in the comments section. That being said, let's get into it. So the first thing to say is that the song that it opens with is not a song from the show. It's a just background song, sort of normal film soundtrack moment where you're just hearing, like, I don't even know what the song was. It was like some sort of an R&B moment that's just playing over a montage of Jamie waking up and then going out in the rain to do a paper round on his bicycle because he's saving up money to buy the shoes that he really wants. We see his mum getting ready to go off to work at the same time. She works at a corner shop, newsagents. As he is returning from his bike round and she is running for the bus, she wishes him happy birthday, and that's been the whole opening montage. We get some lovely establishing shots of Sheffield. It looks very nice and idyllic. So nobody has sung anything at this point. We then move to the class that would normally open the show, where Miss Hedge is teaching the final careers lesson of the academic year. There's some new dialogue in here. You see some of it in the trailer where you've got those twins who want to be YouTubers. Some of it is lifted from the show, and when she talks to Jamie, it's a slightly different interaction. Now, he doesn't do the thing where he would normally turn and speak to the audience and say, what they don't know is I really want to be a drag queen. Doesn't do that, doesn't happen. He doesn't speak directly to the audience because it's a film, okay? They don't do that breaking the fourth wall moment. Instead, because it's a film, they can show us shots of him being distracted in class, scrolling through pictures of drag queens on his phone, and you get the idea. Then we go into the song and he starts singing and you don't even know it. And when we go into the song, the very mundane, ordinary classroom turns into a fantasy version of the classroom. The way that the musical numbers are done in the first half of this film is more like Chicago, where we may technically be in the same place or we may transport to a different place. It's very much an elaborate dream sequence moment. It's not really happening in the same way that it does in other movie musicals. This number then plays out like a music video, basically, and a lot of the scenes that you see in the trailer are from this opening number. The scene with Jamie walking on the catwalk with the finger wave hair and the blue jacket, that's from the end of this number. The scene in the club where it's like the modded school uniform with the hat, which features Leighton Williams as a dancer, that's this number as well. Basically, it starts in the classroom, all very neon, lots of dancing, and then they go to a club and then it goes to a catwalk. All of that happens in this first number. The other difference is the section with, and the girls in the class go, that's all gone. Miss Hedge's rap, gone as well. We then get a nice extra little bit of dialogue where Jamie and Pretty are walking back and she's wishing him luck for seeing his dad on his birthday. This isn't something that I believe happens in the show, and there's some little extra lines of dialogue just establishing their friendship. That's very nice. We cut back over to Margaret and Ray. Margaret is meeting Ray after work, where she's showing her new car, and Ray is making one of several references to a new man that she is seeing. Now, I feel like in the show she's seeing a new man, and in the film she is seeing a new man. Like, the implication is very different. There's another scene where we see Margaret and Ray getting the decorations ready in the back garden of their house in Sheffield for Jamie's birthday. They are expecting his dad to show up, but Margaret gets a text from his dad saying that he's not going to make it. She then runs upstairs to go and write a card to pretend that it's come from his dad, that he dropped it by earlier. This happens to a certain extent in the show as well, but we don't actually see her like going into a frenzy to go and do this for him. It's a nice touch that we get to see this happening, and it really just establishes her maternal role and what a lovely, supportive mother she is. Then the birthday dialogue plays out pretty similarly as far as I can recall. She gives him the shoes, he gets very excited, he walks treacherously down his garden wall in them. Very brave, I could never. Then he walks down the side of his house where he looks through a window into his house, but instead of seeing the inside of his house, he sees various scenes from his childhood. This is beautifully done. I love the way that this is filmed. You see his face singing the song now, overlaid over some emotional and some painful childhood memories, some of which get expanded on later in the film. The next song that we see is Spotlight. This is pretty much unchanged from the show, and the dialogue that leads into it is pretty unchanged from the show as well, except for the fact that it takes place over two different rooms. They start having their conversation, this is Jamie and Pretty, in the study room, in the revision room, and then they finish it in the school cafeteria. And the reason for this is that when they're singing Spotlight and you get the backing vocals, when the lights are going down, all eyes on me, it's the lunch ladies from the cafeteria are suddenly turned into like Dreamgirls-esque backing singers. Again, the room turns into this fantasy version of the room. There's a big spinning thing. It's all very glitzy and glamorous. Jamie still sings the little tag reprise on the end of Spotlight where he does his version, his twist on it. Interestingly, the lyrics about the theatre are still there, like the curtains in maroon and the ice cream and a tiny tub with a built-in spoon. That's all still there, even though we're, as an audience, watching a film adaptation of the story rather than a musical adaptation of the story in a theatre. But the lyrics are the same. Pretty's character, I think, is one of the most similar from the show to the film. She has most of the same dialogue, she sings the same songs, she has the same arc, very little changed about her. Now we arrive at a scene which is significantly different. So this is Jamie and Pretty heading towards the House of Loco in Sheffield, in town. She doesn't go in with him, but she goes up to the shop with him. He goes inside, he meets Hugo. This dialogue is quite changed. Hugo then agrees to become his mentor and ends up showing him a VHS recording from back in the day. Rather than singing The Legend of Loco Chanel, instead we have a song called This Was Me, which is an incredible, phenomenal, very emotional, It's a Sin-esque montage of what it was like to be gay in the 80s. You see marches, you see scenes from the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, you see AIDS wards, you see every aspect of challenging and harrowing and heartbreaking gay life from the 1980s as seen through the eyes of a young Hugo / Loco Chanel, played by original Jamie actor John McCree. Richard E. Grant sings the beginning of this, and then it's sung by someone else, possibly Dan Gillespie Sells, I couldn't quite tell. When we see Margaret confronting Jamie's dad, she doesn't sing If I Met Myself Again at the end of it, and I think the dialogue between them, from what I remember, very changed from the show. Their relationship is also slightly changed. In the show, they're sort of a younger couple who had Jamie quite early on. In the film, he talks about them having tried for so long for a child, for a son, it's all he wanted, and his disappointment when Jamie turned out to be gay. The next song in the show would be Work of Art. This plays out much the same way, but before we go into Work of Art, we see an interesting scene between Miss Hedge and Dean Paxton, where she's trying to persuade him to take his maths exam the next day. This becomes relevant later, but we basically just see how invested she is in him trying to have a future and him having a go at this maths exam, basically. Alongside this happening, Pretty is going into the toilets to help Jamie with his eyebrows. Miss Hedge overhears them. We see a lot of the same dialogue, the parkour joke, it all plays out the very same way. In the film, she is now motivated to make him walk to the art department looking slightly crazy with his eyebrows all skew-if because he makes a rude remark to her. He says something to the effect of, at least he has a future to look forward to. She sends him down the corridor and she begins singing Work of Art. Again, this turns into a sort of music video-esque fantasy moment. Dean does not sing in the middle of it like he does in the show. It is literally just her, and there are two of her at some point singing that other line that Dean would normally sing. At the end of Work of Art, Jamie arrives at an art classroom being taught by a teacher named Miss Haylock. Does that name sound familiar? It should, because it is the real name of Roy Haylock, aka Bianca Del Rio. The art teacher then turns into Bianca Del Rio, who offers Jamie some kind of encouragement, calls him a work of art. He is then fired up with confidence and says to Dean Paxton, who is there, that he should come along to his drag show later that night at Legs 11. Which is what happens. Dean turns up with a bunch of guys in tow and threatens Jamie outside. The word he actually calls him changed from the show to the film. In the show it's Minga. In the film he calls him disgusting, and that's the triggering word for Jamie. We then see him going inside and we see him interacting with the other drag queens. Now these three drag queen characters from the show, Sandra Bullock, Trey Sophisticate, and the other one, they have very little dialogue in the film. They're sort of just there for really set dressing. They do not do much. You see a little bit of shade between them at the beginning as we're entering that scene, but all of the rest of their dialogue they'd normally have with Ray and Margaret, who never go backstage in this version, by the way, that's all gone. He goes in, he's nervous, Jamie this is, he doesn't want to perform. He tries to leave, he walks out into the main area of the social club, and Richard E. Grant sees him. Richard E. Grant is fully up in drag at this point as Loco Chanel, and says, no, you can't leave, and sort of cajoles him into doing the show, and they sing Over the Top. This is done more or less the same way. As the song is being sung, we see a gradual drag transformation, which is one of the biggest changes from the show to the film, because we never get to properly see Jamie in drag during the show. By the end of Over the Top, we see Jamie in drag. Jamie is ready to go out onto the stage, where we also get to see Jamie perform at the drag club. And the song that Jamie lip syncs to is a sort of a disco Donna Summer version of And You Don't Even Know It. The song itself doesn't stand out that much. It's really more just sort of attitude and vocals that doesn't really mean much, that allows him to just sort of do a generic drag performance that's very good. Dean starts heckling and is very quickly kicked out by security at the club. Jamie's performance goes very well, everyone enjoys it. Then we see the song Everybody's Talking About Jamie. Obviously there's no interval, it's a film. This starts on the bus, it goes through corridors, it goes to the playground. It's very much staged as you would expect it to be. It's not visually done like any kind of an elaborate music video dream sequence like some of the other numbers were. It's just that they are dancing around the school. One difference here is that Pretty does not sing the everybody's talking about Jamie, everybody's talking about Jamie. That's just sung by two other girls in the school. Miss Hedge also doesn't come in and interrupt it and the number restart again. She only comes in after the number has completely finished. Jamie comes in, he has the eye makeup on, she sends him down to her office. While he is waiting outside her office, Dean comes in and they have a fight, and then she breaks up that fight. Dean then leaves angrily, refusing to do his maths exam, and this is what motivates Miss Hedge to be even more cross at Jamie, because she sees his behaviour as distracting the others from achieving their potential. She sees a direct line between Jamie's actions and the fact that Dean is not going to try in his maths exam, which is ridiculous, by the way, as an educator, but we're not getting into that right now. Limited edition prom night special, gone. Jamie does not make any attempts to modify the dress that he has acquired from Loco Chanel, aka Hugo. This also means, up until this point in the show, we have not heard Margaret New sing at all. So Jamie is in Miss Hedge's office at this point. His mum and Ray are called in. The meeting goes quite differently, and there is another member of staff there present who tries to be more equality and diversity and say all of the right things, but Miss Hedge is still pushing an agenda that this is not going to be allowed at the prom. Jamie will not be allowed to attend in a dress. His mum and Margaret aren't happy with this, but the dialogue is very changed from the show. We also never see that phone conversation with Miss Hedge where she is calling a guy that she went out on a date with. That just doesn't happen in the film. Instead, we really focus on her as an educator trying to get these kids to achieve. The scene before It Means Beautiful plays out almost exactly the same way, with the same jokes, the same dialogue. Pretty sings the song, it's the same. Jamie goes to leave, he kisses her on the cheek, and she does the same sort of, oh, I secretly love him, I'm going to sing a reprise bit that she does on the end in the show. The design of the room is even very similar to the design of her bedroom in the show. It's all very similar, that scene. Now this is where more changes start happening. She tells Jamie to go and talk to his dad. Bad idea, but whatever. He goes and speaks to his dad in his dad's driveway. It doesn't go well. He's rejected by his dad. He then goes straight home to confront his mother about lying. He has an argument with her that plays out the same way it does in the show. He slams the door. She begins to sing He's My Boy. This is the first time we hear Sarah Lancashire sing as Margaret New, which I think is a very powerful decision. The first verse of He's My Boy, we just see her singing in the kitchen. She stays very still. She's sat by her sewing machine or she's stood by the stove. We see those shots. By the second verse, verse, we then start following Jamie. Now, he doesn't sing Ugly in This Ugly World anymore. Instead, the kind of bad decisions that he makes during that number in the show happen against the background of He's My Boy. We see him going into an off license and stealing something alcoholic. We see him heading down to the Sheffield football stadium where he knows his dad is, and he borrows some football kit and makes like a dress out of it and goes and vogues on the pitch, and he gets kicked off the pitch by an angry football fan who like pushes him against a wall, and his dad runs down and is like, don't do that, that's my son, but we don't hear it, we just see it. And the guy then laughs at him for that being his son, and his dad walks away while Jamie is yelling after him, and this is the end of He's My Boy. We hear the final notes of the song as all of this is playing out. It's very dramatic, but I think a better resolution to all of that than what happens in the show where he just tries to leave and gets beaten up by randomers. There's much more meaning to the way they do it here. It does sort of feel like they're trying to redeem his dad a little bit, but then he ends up still walking away from Jamie as he's lying there bleeding. So not that much. So obviously the little reprise of And You Don't Even Know It that he would sing at the bus station, also gone. When he returns, he still sings My Man, Your Boy with his mother. That plays out exactly the same way. They have the same kind of resolution with some extra dialogue added in, some of which we hear in the trailer. The next thing that happens is we see the actual prom. Now the prom song does not feature in the film. This is another moment where they use an actual song just in the soundtrack, and some of the lyrics from the prom song are just said as dialogue instead. Most of the dialogue that follows it, Pretty having a go at Dean Paxton, Miss Hedge and Jamie having an argument, that remains the same from the show, except that Margaret and Ray are not there. Hugo is not there either. It is just Jamie and Pretty and all of the students begging Miss Hedge to let them go in. She lets them all go in eventually. He speaks to Dean. It all plays out the same way. When Jamie goes into the prom, that's when they sing the finale song, the Out of the Darkness, Into the Spotlight, all of that stuff. The finale song that they would normally do in the show is gone. I think there was an extra little middle eight or something in the Out of the Darkness Into the Spotlight, but I could be just misremembering it from the show. By the end of this number, we have gone from the prom scene to a big parade in Sheffield where Jamie is driving down in a car and being welcomed by this giant neighborhood full of people. It's this whole street party. And that is basically the end of the film. There's a tiny little bit on the end where he walks out and takes the bins out like he does in the show, and he waves to a passing lorry driver who waves back to him, having sort of scoffed at him earlier in the film, and then he sings the final line, the place where we belong, whatever the riff is, at the end, and that ends the film. So those are all of the changes. Like I said, lots of new dialogue in almost every scene, lots of substantial changes, some songs cut, one new song added, but all changes that made a lot of sense to me. So be aware it is going to be different, but the same basic story, the same characters, the same plot arcs are all there. It is still the Jamie that you know and love. So stay tuned on my channel for another video coming soon where I'm going to tell you what I thought of the show and give you my full review. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel for not only lots of upcoming Everybody's Talking About Jamie movie content, but also content from all your other favourite West End shows. And if you want to support me as a stagey content creator, head over to patreon.com/MickeyJoeTheatre for exclusive photo and video content. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!